Coming up, traditional roles in Native American cultures have included Two-Spirit people in a significant way. An Oglala Lakota poetry program gives voice to youth, and Alyssa London welcomes Indigenous women for a TV special. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amadawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start in Oklahoma, where a new substance abuse campaign is aiming to address drug use among Native youth. The Association of American Indian Physicians has collaborated with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration for the project. It encourages Indigenous youth to say no to drinking and non-medical use of drugs. Studies show the earlier in life a young person uses drugs or alcohol, the greater their risk of addiction within their lifetime. This campaign promotes healthy alternatives and specifically targets young people in Osage County, Oklahoma. Organizers hope it will provide culturally sensitive prevention methods and increase education on the issue. The awareness campaign kicked off last month with TV and radio PSAs, and it also uses social media influencers to get the word out. A federal government lawsuit is accusing a Wisconsin town of trespassing on the Lac du Flambeau Reservation. The U.S. Department of Justice says the town, also named Lac du Flambeau, did not renew access easements with the nation a decade ago. According to court documents, the tribe granted road easements within its 86,000-acre reservation in the 1960s. These easements give non-natives the opportunity to move within the tribe's territory and build homes there. In January, this land use dispute came to a head when the tribe barricaded the roads. Representatives for the nation are seeking $20 million to remove the barricades and for a 25-year easement. A U.S. district court will be going over how the new trespassing case should factor into the overall land use case. That federal lawsuit is still pending, with a hearing set for this week. Diversity in Hollywood is slowly but surely increasing. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences says it has new standards for a film to be eligible for an Oscar for Best Picture. The film must have at least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Similarly, the main storyline, theme, or narrative can be from an underrepresented group. The new rules also require leadership and crew behind the scenes to include women, people with disabilities, or people from underrepresented racial groups. Rutherford Falls writer and producer Sierra Ornelas told ICT, quote, "Anything we can do to help increase diversity in this realm is important. Films will not be required to meet the new inclusion standards until the 96th Oscars in 2024. There is a new legacy stone at the entrance of the Oklahoma History Center to honor N. Scott Momaday. Momaday is a Kiowa author who was the first Indigenous person to receive the Pulitzer Prize. It was for his book House Made of Dawn in 1969. Momaday is largely credited as being the founder of the Native American Renaissance in literature. His legacy was celebrated last week during a dedication ceremony at the State's History Museum. A prayer was given by a tribal elder, and the Kiowa flag song was performed by the Kiowa Black Leggings Color Guard. Momaday, who is now 89 years old, was unable to attend due to health reasons. His daughter Jill attended on his behalf. He has received many recognitions in his life, including the National Medal of the Arts and the Academy of American Poets Prize. Well, the work of a Spirit Lake Dakota artist and storyteller is being honored. Marlena Miles has been awarded $50,000 from the Knight Foundation for its Art and Tech Fellowship. That's for her work using advanced virtual reality technology to tell traditional stories. Miles's most recent project is in St. Paul, Minnesota, and is a permanent digital installation called the Dakota Spirit Walk. Users point their phone along the 27-acre path while spirits are overlaid on the screen. The technology uses geolocation, audio, and 3D animation. Miles says her next project is planned for June 25th in Chaska, Minnesota. The Knight Foundation is a nonprofit organization that provides grants for journalism and arts. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Community was front and center at the grand opening of the Oglala Lakota Artspace in May. Pte San Win is part of the poetry program called Dances with Words. ICT's Shirley Sneve has this interview.
This grand opening means that a lot more youth are able to have accessibility to art and being able to create themselves, be able to creatively express themselves, be able to creatively explore their culture, be able to make new friends, make more connections with other artists, being able to hopefully see this space as a safe space and to be able to come here and want to create art and, make community with one another and fellow artists.
Pte San Win performed at We the Peoples Before, a Kennedy Center event sponsored by First Peoples Fund.
The land remembers low rumbling, the ground crumbling, bleach, yeah. Relatives stumbling, children's laughter converts unwillingly to screams. The iron horse transferring aghast takujas to concentration camps you called residential schools, watching as they freeze, attempting to return home.
I was going through a lot before I became a Dances with Words poet, and I found poetry through a program at Rec Loud, and that program kind of dwindled into, or kind of expanded into what it is today. And because of that, I stayed with poetry. I felt safe in the group. I felt like I was heard, and I felt like I had a purpose to be here. So the group definitely had helped me feel less alone. It made me feel like I had a place and I had a purpose and I had people in my life that actually cared about me. Because before that, I was also attempting and doing what I could to try and survive in this time. And the program Dances with Words, and then First Peoples Funds and Lori Puyer, they all were there to help me. And I wouldn't be here without the Dances with Words program. I tell my family this because I'm like, if Grandpa didn't take me to the workshops, if he didn't take me to the open mics, if he didn't take me to poetry slams, I wouldn't be here, because poetry definitely helped me talk about what was hard not to say. And because of my experience and because of how I felt and dealt with what I was going through, I want our youth to have that too. And being a mentor, being a youth development coordinator, being a part of this space means I'm able to give that to youth. And because I was in their position, I know what it's like to not be heard. I know what it's like to feel like the only resort is suicide. I know what that's like. And I also know what it's like to not have anyone to be there, not have outlets, not have resources. So I want to be that person. And I feel like I am, because of all these youth that have joined, showed themselves. And I've seen youth open up slowly. They came into the program a little shy, quiet, but then they they got so much more comfortable that now when we see each other, they smile and say, "Hi, how are you?" and give each other a hug, and they're so happy to be able to be a part of the space. And just knowing that I'm able to help them in that way, just knowing that I'm a part of the impact, the positive impact of being able to help our youth feel that safety and closure, that, you know, our people are more than just hurt. Our people are creative, our people are beautiful, our people are so compassionate and passionate as well, that, you know, I'm so happy that OLA exists, so that hopefully we're able to kind of break that stereotype that, you know, natives just kill themselves. Because I don't want that. I don't want that stereotype. I want people to see us and know, yeah, those people, those natives, they're creative. They're beautiful, creative, artistic individuals. They're innovators. They're able to, you know, I don't want to say resilient because it's used too much, but, you know, we're able to come up from the ashes and just help one another. And that's where it starts, is the community.
In Lakota, Pte San Win means white buffalo calf woman. They are redefining what traditional culture means today.
If you have tattoos, if you have piercings, if you have dyed hair, you're not going to be welcomed into the spirit world. And I told him I didn't like that. I didn't believe in that traditional way of thinking. And he said that that's okay, that you're free to believe that. And I said that I just personally don't see that our ancestors, our relatives in the spirit world, I don't think that they would judge us like that. I think that they would see us as we're evolving. We're just adapting to what this time and age is. And part of adapting is, you know, doing what you can. If it's modifying your body and how you look, then that's fine. And, you know, our culture had two spirits, and they definitely never got judged. They were seen as sacred. And I know that if our ancestors were here now, they would see us all as sacred because we're still here.
June is Pride Month in the U.S., and our next guest is here to put this into historical context. The Reverend Martin Brokenleg holds a doctorate degree in psychology and is a graduate of the Episcopal Divinity School. He has a history of teaching and retired as the Director of Indigenous Ministries at the University of British Columbia. Now he is a priest of the Anglican Church of Canada. I interviewed him earlier this week. Take a look. You've studied the historical context of Two-Spirit people. Tell us about what your research shows.
Well, my approach to Native American studies, which I taught for about 35 years, was of course in part academic, but it was in part personal. My home is the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. I'm from the Lakota Nation. And of course, growing up in that world, a person just hears teachings and experiences related by elders. And I remember many years ago, when I was probably middle school or high school age, I remember hearing an elder say that for a community to be healthy, there had to be 7 kinds of people that were in that community. There had to be men who healed with medicines, with herbalists, I guess you could say male herbalists, female herbalists, men who healed with ceremony, women who healed with ceremony. There needed to be leaders. We would say Itansha in Lakota. Then there needed to be the Nacha. These were the people who took over whenever there was serious need, like a battle or something like that. And then he said there also need to be the Wi'inkte, the Two-Spirit people. All of these people had to be active for the community to be whole. So I heard that experientially, learned that experientially from growing up in the community. Then, of course, as I read, what I encountered a great deal was the confusion and bewilderment and hostility of European peoples when they encountered Two-Spirit people. Because if we look historically, across both North and South America and across the Pacific, Two-Spirit people are welcomed and are open and very much a part of traditional societies. If you go to New Zealand or Australia or Hawaii or Latin America or here in Turtle Island of North America, what we tend to see is an open, welcoming quality of Two-Spirit people. And as you say accurately, all communities regarded Two-Spirit people as having a special closeness to the spirit world. And so that meant that that Two-Spirit people needed to be knowledgeable in ceremonies, but also were also called on whenever spiritual power was in need. So, for example, naming ceremonies among us Lakota, you usually ask an honored person to bestow a name on a younger member of the family, or if something significant happens to a person as an adult, then a new name would be given to that person. And there were certain esteemed people in any community who would be asked to do that. Over one's lifespan, a man might be invited to name 2 or 3 people, but a Two-Spirit person might be dozens and dozens and dozens. That's the case with me. I have named probably 40 people because I'm known as a Two-Spirit person, and the names that I pray for are considered somehow more powerful, I guess, than the names of other people. So you're right in saying, yeah, this is a long, open tradition in indigenous communities in North America, and it bewildered the Europeans.
Are you aware of any indigenous nations who shunned or looked down upon Two-Spirit people?
That we see that only after the presence of missionaries and European explorers. This is their mentality. And of course, there was great hostility to Two-Spirit peoples across Europe and across some parts of Asia, but not in North America. I have never heard of a single indigenous community to North America that was hostile or rejecting. And of course, in Lakota communities, we tease everybody about everything. So a Two-Spirit person is going to be teased from time to time about this or that. In my community, the Lakota community, we had our 3 genders were traditional men, traditional women, and then the winkte is the current word that we use. It's a nonsensical word in a way because it means killswoman. And why we would call a man a killswoman doesn't make any sense if they're Two-Spirit. A linguistic family on my reservation of Rosebud said that wasn't the original pronunciation of the word. The original word was we-i-inkte, a multisyllable word, we-i-inkte, and it referred to, in the Lakota language, we have a form of the language that men speak and a form of the language that women speak. The Two-Spirit people could use either one. And that's what the original word would have meant. We-i-inkte means the men who could use the women's language or the men's language. But of course, our ears have gotten accustomed to hearing English. So there are sounds in Lakota language that people don't hear anymore. And one is the multisyllable, we-i-inkte, 4-syllable word, been reduced to 2 of winkte.
Father, we only have about a minute left here, but I am curious. You've said the word Two-Spirit many times now. It seems as though, from my observation, that that's something that a lot of Indigenous people have really come to use regularly when speaking about the LGBTQ community. Can you maybe comment on if that's okay to use widely?
I think it is. I think it's an appropriate term to use. It's respectful, and in fact was originated by Two-Spirit people. Sometime in the 1960s, there was an organization of Two-Spirit people in the San Francisco area, as I understand it, who started to use that term. But one of their recommendations was never to translate it into an indigenous language because it might be offensive in those various languages. Awoni Anumpa would not be a term. Two-Spirit in Lakota language is not a term we would use, but we would use the English word Two-Spirit because it carries the notion, the indigenous notion, that everything is spiritual. When you come right down to it, everything is spiritual. And so a person who has both feminine and masculine spirits within is a person whose behavior and lifestyle is going to be different from a person who has just one, a male spirit or a female spirit. So it is a respectful term to use, and I appreciate you using it.
Well, Father Martin Brokenleg, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Alyssa London is the founder of Culture Story, a media company promoting cross-cultural awareness and showcases Indigenous culture. Her most recent project is The Culture is Indigenous Women, a special on MSNBC. ICT's Paris Wise has this interview.
I love talking about identity as a mixed-race Tlingit woman who is very, concerned about the next 7 generations of Indigenous identity, Indigenous futurism. I really wanted to get all of the women at the table's takes on what's the appropriate way to refer to Native people in our various communities. As I knew the audience is going to be mainstream America, and we don't often get to have them as our audience for Native topics, I wanted to debunk certain topics like blood quantum and help our audience understand why that might not be the most appropriate thing to ask, and how Native identity is more complex than that. Another topic that I felt was very important to speak about with a table of incredible Native women was missing and murdered Indigenous people. And so we touch on that. And then with having Crystal Echohawk and two other women, Amber and Jane, at the table, who are just such a force in Native Hollywood, then of course I had to talk about Native stereotypes and how those are perpetuated in the media, and also just get a sense of the work they're doing to try and increase Native representation in Hollywood. So those are the few of the topics. So I'm proud of those.
Yeah, I'm so glad you touched on that, because I've personally, I'm sure a lot of people have never seen content like this on such a large scale in mainstream media. From your experience as a storyteller and a journalist, what impact do you see this special having?
The impact that I see the special having is greater dialogue within mainstream America about the fact that Natives still exist, that we're still here, and hopefully to have their interest perked enough so that they will want to see more Indigenous content and be more curious about us. Because I think that while the Crystal Echohawks of the world and some of the other women at the table, their work is so important on the Native side to state and point out through research, even like what Illuminative has created to show that there needs to be more Native content. But then we also need mainstream America to have a demand for it. And I really hope with the ratings of the show that then there will be a business case made, that people will watch content that is about Native Americans. And so the president of MSNBC, Rashida, and her executive team can then sit around and be like, okay, here's the budget. So hoping that we get to make more, not necessarily in this format, but just more Indigenous content.
Can you tell us what it was like working with the Suquamish tribe?
They were just wonderful hosts. They just opened their community to us, and they had a salmon bake and a canoe landing ceremony, and they seemed very just happy to have us. And NBC even pointed out in our crew dinner after the filming was completed, like that night we all got together, and they're like, we'd never felt so welcome. And then I don't know if I said this out loud, but I thought it. I was like, well, welcome to Indian country. When you come on our lands, it's part of our culture to make you feel at home.
I'm sure we can't all wait to see these conversations that you had. Can you tell us a little bit about the conversations off camera, behind the scenes with the women?
Well, I really appreciated Janae Casanavoid and Amber Midthunder's friendship. I don't know if they knew each other before the show. They, like, after we wrapped, were like out in the grass, like doing a lot of TikToks. And that's when I realized I was just past their generation to like be as like good at TikTok as them. So I found that impressive, and I just thought their friendship to be really cute. Like Allie Young and I really vibed, and so we sat together, at the dinner. For me, it mostly was at that dinner. I didn't get to spend as much time with them before taping. The way that it was set up was they wanted my initial meeting with them to be like on camera, and so I like came down from this area of the venue that they had me at, where I had wanted to write thank you notes to all the women in the show, and I was doing that while they were also being delivered once I would finish them, and then that was like taped. And so then I met them. It was very quick, and it was all filmed, and then they had Secretary Holland had a pre-taping of a message to us, and then we all stood and watched that. And then we were just on camera together like the whole time, other than that dinner afterwards. So I guess that's something that I would have liked more, was to get to have what they did, which was like more time to like hang out at the hotel. But that wasn't my role. So I thought if you ever get to interview any of them, I would love to know what their conversations were off camera.
Kind of on that, like, what hopes do you have for future storytellers to continue doing this work? I'm super curious, and whatever inspired you to become a storyteller and journalist, what it would have been like if you saw this kind of content, when you were younger before choosing this career path.
I hope that Native journalists and storytellers who are coming up now will be able to see themselves in a role at NBC, ABC, any of the major mainstream cable news television stations that they may dream of. I think that there's also a lot of entrepreneurship that can take place in media, and I think we see that with the Native entrepreneurs who are in media on TikTok and Instagram. I mean, Native TikTok is really cool. So I don't think that the only way to be able to tell Native stories is by becoming an NBC contributor. But what it would have meant to me to see someone in this position when I was coming up would just, I think we all need to see like what's possible, and to see someone give us a little bit of a roadmap. And so maybe I would have had this dream. I actually didn't initially dream of becoming an NBC contributor because I just didn't know it was in the cards. So I just hope that it's causing people to expand their idea of what's possible for them.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.